safety resource, RA, and those are really the two.
All right, we are live, everybody. It started. Hi and good afternoon on this long weekend, and we so appreciate each of you being here today. For those that don't know me, my name is Dr. Miriam Lynch, and I serve as the Executive Director for Diversity in Aquatics. And welcome to our first Fridays Live. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are so excited to have you join us tonight as we relaunch the series with a conversation that couldn't be even more important. Okay. This us having our first Fridays Live has always been a place where we bring together experts, advocates, families, community leaders to have honest conversations about issues impacting water safety. After an incredibly busy spring and early summer, us and our team has been traveling across the country, hosting water safety festivals, training families, reaching thousands of children. We felt that this is the perfect time to come back together and focus on one of the most urgent topics facing our communities today: autism and water safety. At Diversity in Aquatics, our mission is simple but powerful. It's to educate, promote, and support equitable access to water safety, swimming, and aquatic opportunities for every community. One thing we say often is that water safety begins long before someone gets into the water or even a swim lesson. It starts with education, it starts with awareness, and it starts with giving families the knowledge, resources, and confidence they need to protect the people they love. Have and this conversation, as we talked about, is so important because sadly, we know of a couple of drownings that have recently happened. And I do want to give homage to the families that it has impacted, and use this as a way for us to share these resources with one another. And please, what you hear tonight, please just don't keep it for yourself. We want you to share this stream with your community, with other organizations, and more. Because the more that we have this conversation, the more lives that we can help save. So, we're incredibly proud of this partnership that we have as part of Diversity in Aquatics and the Autism Society of America. And together, we're working to expand access to water safety education, adapted aquatics, programming, and inclusive opportunities so that every family can feel welcome, supported, and prepared. Tonight isn't just about discussing a problem, it's about sharing solutions, highlighting resources, and learning from one another. So, without further ado, I'm really honored to be able to share the experts we have here in this room and in this session that have taken their time during this holiday weekend to share their expertise with each of you. We've got two members from our Adapted Council, and I'm going to have Dr. Monica Lepore go ahead and you can give your intro.
Hi, and happy first Friday. My name is Monica Lepore, and I am an adapted aquatics instructor with Starfish Aquatics. I'm a member of the Adapted Aquatics Council of Diversity in Aquatics. I am an assistant coach for the college swim team at Westchester University, and I am a Special Olympics swim coach. In addition to that, I have spent 37 years in higher education, educating college students on how to support and empower students with disabilities in health, physical education, physical activity, especially aquatics.
Amazing. And thank you, Dr. Lepore, for being here. And next, I will introduce our chair of our Adapted Council, Miss Adrienne Wesley.
Hello, I'm Adrienne, and I have experience of being a special education teacher for 10 years. I am an owner of Sensory H2O, which is an adapted aquatics swim program. Also a RBT that I've been since 2016. Which brought my love into drowning prevention with our kids with autism, noticing so much lack that they had, and that brought me to being here with you all today.
Amazing. And thank you, Adrienne, as well for being here. Our special guest today and announcing our partnership with the Autism Society, we have Miss Katie Wentley.
Hi, everybody. I am Katie Wentley. I oversee all of the safety programming at the Autism Society of America. Prior to this role, I was or have been a lifelong swim instructor, swimmer beforehand. I kind of by accident found the disability community when I was a teenager. And once I found the disability community, I never really let it go. And from there, became a school teacher for children with autism, while maintaining credentials to be a swim instructor, and pursued my master's degree in autism and have really dialed in my focus into drowning prevention and water safety and how we can make a safer community for our autistic families, but then also for how the community can be empowered to keep everybody safe as well. And I'm so incredibly honored to be with you and amongst this conversation and to become official partners together.
Amazing. And thank you as well. And to round it off, our moderator for this evening, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Angela Beal-Tafik.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's such an honor to be here with you all. We get to do this, and that's the joy. And just, we know from our background and experience, I get to be a board member of Diversity in Aquatics, a member and co-chair for the Research and Education Council, and just so many other things, right? But the wonderful thing that we love about our First Fridays is it's a room for conversation. And so our team today is here to really just engage, to inform. And what we want you to remember is that as Dr. Lynch said, and all of the expertise, it's our network that really makes us who we are. And so today, as we say, hey, reach out and touch someone, we want you to do that. That's what we say. A reach and assist is what we're asking for today. And so we want you to be safe around water, safe in this conversation, be comfortable and join us as we go. So we always want to give you tools. So today we announced our partnership with between Diversity in Aquatics and the Autism Society of America. And we hope to help you. One of the things we did was we framed this conversation around some information we want to share. The American Academy of Pediatrics shared an article, and we're going to share it with you, basically talking about the important, which helped us frame it. And so our conversation is wanting to help really shape our conversation around helping families move into awareness and action. So that's our goal. So after this, read it and more, and that's what we're going to talk about. So recently, the American Academy of Pediatrics, yes, guys, and parents, that's where we take our kids all the time. I was just at my pediatric doctor, 4 kids, you've been there all day. But they released a policy statement which emphasized that children with autism spectrum disorder are approximately 3 times more likely to drown than children without AESD. And that's the acronym we'll use here if it's okay. And this is with wandering and elopement into water being a significant contribution. And so this report also stressed the importance that drowning prevention, right? We say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, requires multiple layers of protection, and there's not one single solution. And so one of the great things that we are doing with our collaboration, and guess what? Our adaptive council, that's our team. We are here because the reality is this conversation expands across our whole organization. And so as you see, whether it's our triathlete council, whether it's our Learn to Swim, we want you to understand adapted aquatics, autism, differently abled applies everywhere, and everywhere is impacted. And it's not just a him, her thing. It's not just a Black thing, right? As people might want to say, it's a we universal thing. And as we sit here today, we're going to be talking about it from a united framework, right? Here we are, 4th of July. But we at Diversity in Aquatics know sometimes the 4th of July, right? One of the things that, from the view of our historic, as we are from, right? The idea we are from the enslaved or the displaced people, in terms of our leadership. The idea is really being able to show what united is, and united to raise awareness and save lives. And so the report, our goal is to encourage partnerships. So we want to show this is an example of a recommendation, a partnership among organizations such as Diversity in Aquatics and Autism Society of America, your own pediatricians, guess what, your neighbor next door, your students in your classrooms, your family, because I always go, I'm a walking statistic. My family don't even want to hear it, but I'm like, information is power. To really make a change. So we're going to start this is the conversation, and that's our goal here. So I'm going to start, Katie, if you don't mind. Can you tell us about the Autism Society of America's mission and why water safety is such an important part of supporting autism individuals and their families?
Yes. So at the Autism Society, our mission is to connect everybody to the resources that they need when they need it so that they can live a full and meaningful life. You'll hear me add a full, meaningful, safe life, because you can't live a full, meaningful life without being safe. And so safety has to come to the forefront, whether that be, in the kitchen or wherever you are. But of course, water safety takes top priority when looking at the numbers that have been released by the AAP, numbers that are released by the CDC and the National Child Fatality Death Review. There are so many things. So in order to live out our mission, we would be missing the mark entirely if we didn't focus on water safety and drowning prevention, because so much of what we do to ensure that our community being those with autism and those impacted by autism, and we all really truly are connected to autism, we're missing it if we're not focusing on drowning prevention and wandering, because that is such a big component of some of the characteristics and things that the community does experience at large, whether we talk about it or not.
That is so wonderful. And that key is we. So we hope you hear we, y'all. We in this discussion. So, Katie, are there misconceptions about autism and water safety that you wish more people or more families understood?
Oh, yes. I mean, I could probably talk to you all for hours on hours on hours about the many, many misconceptions, but there are two that really stick out to me, in the sense that many people think that or I guess maybe three, that when you learn to swim, it's a very quick linear thing. 6 to 8 lessons and we're good to go and we carry on with life. And that's just simply not the case, whether we have autism or not. And these are skills that need to be practiced and maintained throughout. And putting a timeline on learning to swim, or expectations around a skill that somebody can do and within what time frame and in what order, really. So like if we're doing A, B, C skills, it's not necessarily realistic to expect somebody to put those skills together in that order, and being okay with that difference in their timeline and their learning skill acquisition. But then the other thing that I think is super important, especially as we go into the 4th of July weekend, and for all people, is that nobody's ever really drown proof, right? So we can take swim lessons and we can be water safe and water smart, and we absolutely 100% underscore need to do those things. But even the best of swimmers could experience some sort of medical emergency where drowning is always something that can happen. So this is why water safety isn't just for someone that's learning to swim. It's for everybody all the time. And then the last misconception about autism and water safety kind of correlates more to the wandering aspect, in that a lot of times we see families or hear from families that have experienced their child wandering, and it stays really hush hush. And I understand that, because as a parent, it's impossible to not feel that blame, and shame and embarrassment, like, oh my gosh, I lost my child, or they wandered. And so many times society wants to point the finger and like, you're a bad mom, or you're a bad dad, or you're a bad this. And that's not the case. And I think until somebody has walked in those shoes and has learned what wandering truly is and lived a day in the life, that's just not 9.5 times out of 10. That's not the case. That's not due to neglect or a bad mom, so to speak. So I hope that through these conversations that we're able to have, that this allows people to to kind of be honest and know that wandering happens, and it happens to just about everybody. We know that it's 49%, and that's just the ones that are willing to talk about it. I'd be very interested to know if we felt more comfortable to share that it'd be quite higher. And it's not just autism, toddlers go missing all the time. I know I ran to in stores, I'd hide in the clothing racks from my mom. These are things that happen. It's scary, but it happens. And I think the more that we can talk about it and bring light to it, I don't want to say it becomes normal, but maybe we can start working towards solutions and support.
Absolutely. Right, team? I mean, how many of you, Doc, you got Adrian, like, think about yourself and your kids, right? How many times you lost them? I remember a time when look, you think about it. I remember I lost my little one. I was in the store. I was looking crazy, right? We put, as we say, our idea is unification in terms of this discussion. I lost my kid in the mall, y'all. I was looking for him. He was little. He had this pooping complex. He went and hid behind some couches somewhere, and I looked crazy. So imagine if I was in an aquatic environment. Don't talk about it, right? Normally, but okay.
Right.
So
yeah.
So this is great. So, Katie, so if a family has a child who loves water but has never participated in a swimming lesson, where should they begin? Any recommendations?
Oh yes, there's lots of places to begin, and I want to be hyper aware and sensitive to the fact that not everybody has access to pools year round, if at all. Access meaning financially or geographically, or simply maybe it's something that petrifies us to bring our child to the aquatic environment if we know that they love water. But there are things that we can do even if we don't have water that we're going to all the time or close by. The first thing I really like to zero in on, and it probably sounds silly when I first say it, is following directions. And I'm saying that because if we can get somebody to follow directions, we're kind of halfway there. And then we're going to add following directions when something really reinforcing is close by. The iPad's next to me and I love the iPad, but mom said no right now. So let's follow directions here. And I say that because it's for somebody that loves the water. If I love the water so much, I may or may not want to follow that direction. And if I really love the water and don't care, I'm going to go towards the water. So if I can start with that following directions piece, we're taking it inch by inch, bit by bit. We're not building Rome in a day. We're just doing it one bit at a time. And then when we think about the following directions piece, how can we reinforce those skills so that we're practicing them across different communities, different settings, so that when that all-powerful water comes in, we're a bit more confident in our skill set, and we're a bit more confident in the person that's asking or giving the instruction. That if mom says I have to wait first and then go in the water, I know that she's going to follow through with that, because if I don't know she's going to follow through, I might take my chances. So if we can kind of do that at home prior, that's super helpful. Rules and expectations go a long way. And sometimes I hear people say, well, I don't know if my child understands what I'm saying, or I don't know. And I hear that. I absolutely hear that. But there's muscle memory. We can repeat. We make sure that we're doing things and applying and teaching things to the cognitive level that is appropriate for our learner. And again, I didn't learn fractions in a day. I'm not sure if I ever really did. But practicing it helps quite a bit. And even if we don't think that it's sticking, I think you might want to think again, because it does. And you don't know, in that moment, it could be super helpful. Another thing that I like to have parents do is use like all sorts of physical or visual boundaries or barriers as reminders. Those are really helpful. Those are also parts of applications of evidence-based practices and strategies. So I always try to enforce things that we know are research-based, so that we know that it works regardless of the learner. We may just have to curate it so it makes sense for the person specifically and differentiate it. But that's where I personally would start, especially, following directions. We're kind of, 40% there.
Katie, do you mind if I add a third to your piece?
Absolutely. This is why you're here.
Right. Everybody, jump in.
Anecdotally, I have discovered that some people with autism, as they go through puberty, develop seizures. And that is another issue in our, in our basket, beside the two you mentioned, that, that now we have a health concern, especially in the water. So I just wanted to add that to our 2 or 3 things that you mentioned.
No,
And I'm glad that
I'm
you
so-
did.
Right. I mean, hello. We're not like talking heads sitting here, y'all. You're supposed to, right? We're all, is so much, just the idea of wisdom, right? The wisdom of communities. And I really love the sharing, because that's what we want to know. And I really like, the inclusion, Katie, that you shared about the fact, and as we said, it starts before. That's what Dr. Lynch said before. It starts before you actually get to the pool, right? It starts before you get to a body of water. And so I even thank you so much, because what I want parents to understand, when you share, Katie, about settings, the importance of being able to apply the knowledge, or work for parents to work with children overall, in terms of establishing rules and following rules, because environments change, right? And so we're really looking for parents to gain awareness, to keep children safe in, on, and around bodies of water, and understanding, when we're talking about water safety and drowning prevention, around the statistics in general, right? Children ages 1 to 4, most of the time, and we don't have to separate. That's the part, are being impacted by drowning, are in bathtubs, buckets, pools, right? I remember, when we're talking about children ages 5 to 19, right? I'm sorry, 5 to 14, it's most of the time happening in swimming pools, right? And then when we're talking about 14 and over, or 30, under the age of 30 and down, we're talking about natural bodies of water sometimes. So there are many different environments that we hope to, just even in this conversation, provide parents with really why awareness is important. And then hopefully, if you look into programs, they could begin to work with that. So I'd like to go there. So what recommendations might you have for parents, to say, what should parents look for when selecting a swim program, or that is welcoming and supportive for their, for participants, and in this case, let's say, participants who might have the gift, as I say, of autism. One of the things I say, special, right? Here we go, all of us. What should parents, are there any strategies or recommendations for that parents could actually look for if they're looking at a swim lesson or program?
This is definitely a really popular question, and I wish I had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and this is what it is. And then to respect that there are certain things, but first and foremost, they have to mesh with you. You as the caregiver need to feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, there's no way that your child's going to have a chance at feeling comfortable, because they're going to feel that mom or dad or caregiver is like, oop, I don't like this. I'm uneasy. We feed off of that. My children feed off of my own anxiety all the time. And I'm like, hey, how do you do that? But how can we know that we feel comfortable, right? So one of the things that I like to do, if we're in a situation where we're blessed to have multiple options, which is not always the case, can we kind of go and put on your investigator hat and look through their social media, look through their website? Are you able to take a little visit? Do they allow you to observe a lesson or two that has nothing to do with your child in the water? So maybe you can be a little bit unbiased. Again, if you have the time and the ability. But what does a Reddit feed say? Can you find a Reddit feed? Can you really dive into what you can? Not to say that those are always fact, but you might get a good little synopsis of it, of a Facebook group, and then call. How are they interacting with you? And share, to your comfort level, of course, what your situation might be. How do you feel about somebody with autism? Have you taught somebody with autism before? And the reaction that you get can pretty much determine, what's going on. And I don't say that if they've never done it before, doesn't mean that they're not going to be a good fit for you, because there's just people that just get it. Their heart just gets it. And they may not have an official training. but you can probably read that. And what you're looking for when you're asking those questions, in my opinion, is somebody that's willing to think outside of the box a little bit of a flexible thinker, someone that's a little less rigid, especially when we look at, learning step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, because it's really not going to happen that way. And then I would ask questions like, what if my child refuses to get in? What do you do? Or if my child is telling you, no, I don't want to put my face in the water, what is your response going to be? And how are you going to figure that out? And I'm of the school of thought that no means no, even if they're 3 years old or 2 years old. It means let's find another way to teach the skill. Because if we're forcing somebody to do anything, we're not teaching them, we're scaring them. And that really defeats the purpose, in my opinion. And the respect and dignity of a human is completely out the window at that point. And that has to come first before anything, of course, safety, but then dignity and respect. So I think asking those basic questions and seeing what their response is can help. And I see Adrian wants to jump in, so I want to stop talking.
Yeah, so I'm going to piggyback a little bit on you, Katie. Definitely understanding, making sure that you're comfortable and you feel safe. A big thing for me is I tell people when you go into a school one-check environment, understanding what their classes look like, what their class sizes look like, what is their curriculum? Do they have a one-size-fits-all curriculum? So is your child expected to do these certain skills before they can move on? What are their flexibilities like? And for me, it is important to have somebody on your staff who is either a teacher, because that level of patience is totally different because it transfers. They're not saying it has to be a teacher, but if they're saying they don't have, say, a particular adapted aquatic cert, or they have not had that skill of experience, then having someone in that in the pool who has real child care experience. Because most time what you're going to get people who hire teenagers or college students. And the reality of it is they might be great. I hire all college and high school students, and we found gifts. We found some who did not even know that they would enjoy working with people with disabilities. And now they're going to college for OT and special education and things like that. And so you find gifts, but they still had leadership in that space that helped guide them to show them what they needed to do. So it's really important to me that you look at the environment, you look at curriculum, look at the school's expectations of what they expect. And you need to be able to know, okay, this is what my kid needs, and be able to communicate it. Because sometimes parents do operate in a little bit of shame, and they don't necessarily give honesty when their kid comes to the pool. And so for your safety, you got to be honest. If you have an eloper, say it. If your kid has an adverse effect to certain things, say it. Like, don't shock the instructor either, so that you can have a better experience.
So one of my friends is watching, and she just texted me. She has an adult son on the autism spectrum who just graduated from college. And she said one of the first things we did with Jack getting swim lessons when he was young was ask his physical and occupational therapist if they knew somebody that they recommend. So that's one of the things she added. And for me, I'm also like Adrian, I'm looking for your background. You may not have an adapted aquatics instructor certification, but you sure as heck better have a progressive learn to swim certification, a water safety, American Red Cross water safety instructor, Starfish, a YMCA. If you don't have that, first of all, that's a no. That's a zero, no. I have two other things that are maybe like soft. And one of them is the support that this instructor or program gets from their facility or organization. And, I've spent many years operating as a one-person show, but my boss would always say, yes, you can have the pool at that time. Yes, you can wait till it's this time of the swim season, and then, yes, we'll put the water up for you. Yes, we'll only have your kids in there. We will not share with the swim team. So support is kind of an important part, because we're going to be asking or demanding things for our programming for the children that is above and beyond the typical swim lessons. Number one is the low ratio of children to instructors. So if my boss is telling me, oh, no, we can't do a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1, we do a 6-to-1 because we'll lose money. Well, that's not a supportive environment. That's not going to be ripe for inclusion of children on the autistic spectrum. And lastly, the welcoming language and tone that the instructor and their support people are giving to this family, the welcomingness, the way that you really know how to ask a question and are not embarrassed to say, does your child have any elopement behaviors that we will work together to work with? I think that's a really important piece.
So, Doc, but you said something that I love, but I think that you bringing out another point is that the instructor says that we can work with together. They are now part of your village. It's a we working towards a solution. It's not a you, mom, or you're no longer in programming. You said we, and I think that's the point entirely, is that the facility has to be able and be willing to become a we, even if we don't know what that solution is yet.
See, this is what we say. We're diving in. Oh, well, go ahead, Adrienne.
I want to add one last thing.
Absolutely.
Dr. Lepore, with the welcoming, and also making sure that what they ask you as well. Like, one thing that I always ask is, what does their therapist say they need? Like, making sure that they are concerned about what the participant needs as well, so that you are sure they're not putting them inside of the cookie cutter, what needs to happen program, because then they're making sure that that individual is getting what they need, whether they're a child or you're talking to an aged adult with a disability, like knowing that safety piece before you get in.
And Adrienne, what's really interesting, that was on my little list that I wrote down, because the reason why you ask all those things is because if you don't do an assessment to determine supports, present level of performance, what goals, and can those goals be provided in the inclusive setting, or will you be recommending as the swim instructor to the parent that maybe they need to be pre-taught for 6 weeks before they're moved to the inclusive setting? So assessment.
Yes.
See, look, this is so, I mean, we could have this conversation. That's why it's good we're in a collaboration, because this conversation, there's so many, just like our tree of what water access to water, access to resources, how it's in Diversity In Aquatics, it's a tree. We represent it with a tree of life, right? And if you learn and have an awareness and have opportunities around water, it can open and branch out like a tree to so many opportunities. But one of the things, I mean, this is great. And so we're talking about relationships, the importance of knowing each other, knowing instructors, looking for a variety of things. But we would be remiss if we don't talk about the reality about the intersectionality of race and disability when it comes to working with Black and Brown youth, and African-American youth in this case. To not understand when we're talking about African-American youth, the perceptions of African-American children and autism are usually shaped by race and disability. And so historically, research has shown, statistics, just everyday life has shown that youth adults that are faced with autism and symptoms or delayed health resource access in terms of even identifying or dismissing or misdiagnosing autism is done as a behavioral issue. And in the case of the Black and Brown and African American community, at times for adults or youth, it has also resulted in a loss of life, sadly, in terms of encountering situations where there has been an adult or a person that, where they might have had some, if we're talking about in the case of autism and being diagnosed, in terms of this, sometimes African American autistic youth have to navigate what the research has called intersectional experience. And so with this, when we're talking about, and it's across not just autism, but education, and more Black youth are more likely to have, if they have been identified or diagnosed with autism, to really be misdiagnosed in terms of behavioral or conduct disorders. And so rather than having support and treatment in terms of whether it's environments in schools and classrooms and more, for instance, what could be considered a harmless autistic stimulatory behavior, such as tapping or rhythm or moving or twisting, can be unfairly viewed as defiance and mischief. That's a part of the reality and experience. And so as we're talking about the importance of just really trying to look at many things, belonging, that's what we're looking for. We're trying to have families be able to give, to be able to feel a sense of belonging when going into an aquatic environment, asking that question, will my child be accepted? Can we work together? What would you think, or how can community pools or aquatic facilities or parks and facilities or just department, parks and rec, or organizations, or even teachers, right? Instructors, what do you think might be some strategies or things that instructors or organizations have to do? Like you said, a needs assessment, Doc, you said earlier. What might be some things that can be done, or information or discussions that can be done to help support and this reality, this conversation, or this knowing about the possible experiences, to create a safe and inclusive environment for autistic individuals of all races?
Am I first? I don't want to take the thunder from anybody. I'm happy to be okay. I'm happy to be first. I don't want to take thunder.
I know that was a heavy. I mean, the reality is that's a heavy. It's not, for some people it's heavy, but one of the things that we even like about this collaboration is, like we said, we want to talk about everything and engage and support all communities. And like we said before, Adrian, I think you said it too. Don't be afraid. We've heard shame, fear. Don't be afraid to tell the truth, right? About the child's experience. We don't want labels. So we're taking them all off. And that's what we love about this conversation, because that's how we will grow. And a lot of healing, a lot of examples of what we're going to need in our society today is grassroots efforts just like ours to really embrace all of it.
Well, and I think that, the theme of this conversation is going from awareness to action, but it has to start with the awareness piece. And somebody like me, I can read about these experiences, but I can't say that I've lived those experiences. But what's helpful is that we're talking about it, because I can't possibly try to be a contributor to a meaningful solution if I don't know about it or if I'm blind to it. So I think one of the first things is bringing it to the forefront and having, yes, is it an uncomfortable conversation? It could possibly be, but it's something that needs to be had. And when you look at it from somebody that is Black or brown that has autism, the likelihood that their parents or grandparents have also experienced these kinds of disparities and inequities is pretty high. And from what I've read and from what I've learned. And so we need to be able to, yes, this person may or may not have autism, but we need to be aware of these different experiences that do happen every single day in this country and in every other country. And how can we, as an instructor or as an aquatics personnel, parks and rec personnel, how can we dial back out of ourselves for a moment and seek first to understand before, I'm asking you a question to understand so that I can better know what to do. And I think that has to take a lot of humility. You kind of have to take, your shoes off at the door. But, at that point, it doesn't matter if somebody has autism or CP or doesn't have a disability at all. We're humans. And so how can we actually curtail what we're trying to teach? What is our goal here? Our goal is to welcome you into this facility so that we do reduce the drowning incidents. Okay, so you just so happen to be an African American with autism or whatever that might be. But we first need to see you as a human and understand what you're bringing to the table, what your experiences are coming from, and how can we then go in from there, from a place of understanding, not from judgment, because that's where I think we get hung up. You see somebody coming in all the time. You're at a school or you're at the grocery store and you hear the kids awfully noisy. And then you've got the neighbor down the way, Sally, who's got her 2 cents to say, and Sally has no idea that mom didn't sleep last night and the kid's sick, but he also has autism and he's also having difficult time communicating, all of these things. And Sally's like, well, you need to discipline your child. I'm like, hey, Sally, you have no idea what is going on here. And that's the example here. So whether that child has autism or not, or whatever, we don't know what is going on. And so I think first we have to dial it back so that we can, but you have to want to do that. And and that's where we need to have that heart to heart with ourselves. I think Adrienne wanted to contribute.
Yeah, Adrienne. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm gonna go a little bigger. I think conversations like this are necessary, but we need to have them in spaces like the local government's recreation, parks and recreations, and talk to them about what accessibility really looks like and what does inclusion really look like. And so that they can create the environment in the space, because they don't know that it's a necessity. Therefore, they can't create the programs. They don't know how to create the environment. They just know that the ADA says this is what you're supposed to do, because, and they have to do that as a government ran. They don't understand. They're not humanizing it. Right? Like Katie just said, like they're not understanding from a human perspective. The human perspective is the impact is we're trying to save lives. If you're in a community like me in Atlanta, we're in most of the pool spaces are in the Black communities, and they are the most underused, underserved, and underappreciated because they're not even taken care of. So of course, it starts there. So they have to know, hey, city of Timbuktu, there's drowning rates going on here, and in your community, you have 38% of your students in this your district, or we go higher. About 38% of the kids in your district have IEPs, 504s. That means they need accommodation. So even if it's not autism, it's something. So we got to be able to talk to them and let them know, like, we need you to meet us halfway, whether it's legislation, whether it's a program that you give, whether it's funding that you put aside, whether it is making sure that you understand the pool needs some rugs on the floor so that it's not tripping up, the person who walks through here on their CP cane or whatever, just whatever the case may be. I think that we just kind of got to go and have those realistic conversations so that it can be as simple as they can put a sign up. How now we got the handicap signs, you got the blind people signs, you have signs in the community that tell you a kid here with autism. We need the community centers and recreation spaces that are set for us to have those same, accessibilities. Go ahead, Dot.
I think I'm going to take this down to the practical level a tiny bit. And that is the way that I have tried to break into this conversation is to have things and ideas ready for parents. For example, when I take out a soul cap or a hair umbrella, and I have that in my backpack, that's in my backpack all the time.
Yeah, Doc, you got to tell people what a soul cap is and a hair umbrella is. You can't just drop those terms and see that. You got to tell them what they are.
All right. These are swim caps that give extra room for natural hair or braided or locked hair, or just anyone really that has more hair than a regular bathing cap. But some of them actually really keep your hair dry. And I know that some of my moms of the young women who are Black and have autism, they like that idea. They like the fact that that hair is going to stay kind of dry, and I like it because I don't want you eating your braid while you're trying to do your breathing. So having the practicality of things such as, a Muslim young woman with autism, like I know where to buy a hijab that can be worn in the pool. I know that someone has instructed me and told me about how to use their skull cap and then their bathing cap, and that has to be done, in private. So knowing a little bit of cultural sensitivity and the practicality of having those things on the tip of your tongue or in your backpack. When I pull out that soul cap, I get a lot of street creds. That's what I want to say.
I have a cute story about the caps. So I always wear the big caps, and I had one on. I never have one on at practice. And one time I had one on at practice, and we're talking to being around, more Caucasian kids, and literally the parents were asking me how to get that cap because it wasn't a black white thing. It was, my kid has a lot of long hair. It's a lot to put in that little tight cap. Coach, how are you doing it with all of your hair? And it just kind of became a thing, and it just made it easier for them. But anyway, I just thought that was funny that you pulled out the cap.
No, and that's what what I'm hearing is basically what we're saying. It's that knowing, like Katie, you said, it's about knowing about the experiences, and that's what we're saying. What we've just shared are just really the idea of, which can also, regardless of my experience too, right? As African American, we know with our indigenous brethren, right? The cultures, it's about culture and a cultural affirmation, regardless of the community that you're working with. Like, I wish I was bilingual, but I guess, as I said before, I don't know, Dawkins, because I'll go, okay, I can try sign language. I'm trying anything. But the idea is we want to communicate this information to parents, and cultural affirmation is what we're saying we're not going to ignore. And that's what I love about it, right? And this, as you said before, Adrian and Katie, is we're all saying it's about the safety of our children. And this, people might say, hey, this is what we thought it was just about water safety, but we know it's so much more. And that's why this collaboration is so key. And so I want to think about, we're going to come back. If a parent, then Katie, right, with all this is so much, and I really even hate, I'm not cutting it off, but I want to ask some more questions because we want to, give, where everybody's around water right now. It's 4th of July. People are going places. What safety plans then could we suggest that every family should have before, like you started earlier, you shared some, as we said, following the rules. More, are there any recommendations that we could share for families to say, hey, maybe these are some things that you should consider before spending time in, on, and around any bodies of water, like a water safety plan that you might recommend?
Oh yes, there's hundreds, and I think at times it can be super overwhelming for parents to be like, what, I have all of these things to do. We're already packing for a day at the beach where I feel like I'm loading up my entire car and half of my life in just to get the children to the beach. And then I have to kind of think about all of these other things, and it's a lot. But it does make a difference in the long term. And I think, first of all, it's about knowing your child or young adult or, whoever that might be, and knowing what is the best way to communicate with them? What is the best way to teach them things so that we know ahead of time, if we're going to the beach, if we're going to grandma's house, these are the rules in place. And then as the adults and the other stakeholders, this is our plan in case of an emergency happens. And I hate to kind of think about that. I know that's not what we want to think about, but we have to, because in the minute of an emergency, our brains are not able to make these sound choices that we need to make when seconds count. So what are the things that we need to do here? We need to first identify, okay, where we are going. If it's a friend's house, great. Does that friend's house, what does the water situation look like? Do they have a 4-sided fence? Does it have a self-latching door? Who is watching the water? Because there's 25 adults in this house with 5 kids, and we all think we're watching. So we need to have that system in place. And I know everybody here is water watcher, but it is so important, especially the more adults you have, it's honestly the more dangerous, because we just think everybody else is paying attention and everyone's giving 2% of their attention and nobody's watching, truly. But then what does the door situation look like? So we know we need these layers of protection. I always call it the all-you-can-eat buffet, and then you go back for more dessert, because you've got to have every single layer imaginable, because humans make mistakes every single day. I will probably make 12 more before I go to sleep tonight. But like this happens. And so if we know grandma doesn't have a pool fence around her pool, but we're going for the 4th of July cookout, can we close the doors? Do we have a pool alarm that we can bring? Can we bring portable door alarms? And I know it sounds like a lot, but these are things that truly matter, where we're hearing audibly when a door is being opened, when there's chaos going on within the home. And chaos can be happy chaos, but it's still chaos. Grandpa's out there barbecuing and leaves the door open, and that is a prime opportunity for somebody to walk outside unnoticed, because everyone's kind of busy. So these are things and strategies that we need to think about. Identifying bodies of water wherever we're going needs to be paramount. And this means bodies of water we swim in and don't swim in. So canals, lakes, ponds, you name it, we need to have an inventory of it. And then we need to make this plan. And the stakeholders involved in this plan have to absolutely know their role in this plan, because if you have to initiate plan, we've got to initiate ASAP. And we need to plan it strategically. So if we know, an aging great grandparent maybe isn't the most mobile, they're going to stay in the house and call 911 or whoever you feel comfortable calling, if law enforcement's not something that you feel comfortable calling. But then those that are more mobile, you're checking the pool. Their dad's checking the neighbor's pool. Auntie's checking the pond. So we're stationing these people, but these are things that we know about off rip. This is, maybe we put this inside the kitchen cabinet and it's pasted there because I don't want a child to necessarily see it and be like, this is where I'm going to go because I'm not listed there. But that we know and we can kind of go back to, and it doesn't have to be a 3-hour long process, but it should be something that we know. Get a group text going right away. Set a group chat. These are all the people at this party. Guess what? If something goes haywire, I'm chatting, SOS, plan initiates. And so what you're doing. Text the plan in that group chat, right away so that you can refer back to it. Just simple, really intentional, meaningful things that can make such a difference. And I glossed over so many just for this week.
No.
We need to be prepared.
Yes.
And my favorite thing to do with these parties and cookouts, because I love the water. I hate a pool party. I get so scared with my kids because it's so easy to want to chit chat with the moms and do whatever. And so the thing I love to do is you wear a silly hat, something absolutely ridiculous hat. Doesn't obscure your vision, of course, but then every person in that house or a party, wherever you are, knows that they're in charge of the water. So much so that the kids are laughing at you. So you can't forget because you've got this crazy looking hat on. And then you pass the torch after 15 or 20 minutes. Yep. And so now it's this person's turn. So it's not just a handoff. It is absolutely it is visually, you're wearing this silly hat and, maybe it's got fans and the little spinning, I don't know. Get funny with it.
You are dead on. And so what I hear, right, and as we're doing water safety, it's create an emergency action plan. Parents, think about it, know who your water watchers are. One of the things we have our great Water Safety for All resources page on Diversity in Aquatics. We want you to all log on. We actually we'll share the link here with you. And you can find that in our water safety for research, water safety resources for all. We have these great resources, as you see, for families, why education is important, from the American Autism Society of America, where we are sharing with you. And we want everyone, and as we said, our time, I can't even believe we're coming to a close, but there's so much more. And so we say this conversation is going to be ongoing. But one of the things we want to say is Katie, we want to ask one more thing, and then we're going to close out. What are you, and we're going to have this conversation, everybody. I know everybody's like, no, there's so much more. I'd like to ask you, as we talk about, this is a collaboration with Diversity in Aquatics and the Autism Society of America. What excites you most about this collaboration between our two organizations?
The opportunity to have greater impact, truly, because the people that Diversity in Aquatics is able to reach and impact go beyond the community that I'm able to reach. And then together, we're hopefully going to do a true meaningful drowning prevention and hopefully see these numbers start to drop. And I think when I think about the partnership that we have here, two words come to mind, and it's you matter. You matter whether you're Black, you're brown, you have autism, you're part of the Indigenous community, you matter. It doesn't, the rest matter, you matter culturally. As a human, you matter. So I'm so excited for the impact, but then also to hopefully make others feel seen and known that they matter too.
Well, and thank you. So I just have to say thank you. We say our welcome to Diversity in Aquatics.
I'm so honored. I'm so excited to be a part of your lovely, lovely group. I'm so excited.
No, and so we just want to say, it takes, with Diversity in Aquatics, thank you so much, Dr. Lepore. Thank you so much, Adrian, Ms. Winsley. Thank you so much, Katie Whitley. Look, you thought sisters, thank you so much, Dr. Lynch, for allowing us to begin this conversation. And as we said in the beginning, in drowning prevention, it's more than just the responsibility of family. It's going to take healthcare providers. It's going to take educators, aquatic professionals, community organizations, policymakers, and more. And through this partnership between the Autism Society of America and Diversity in Aquatics, we hope to equip families with practical knowledge to increase awareness, access to inclusive aquatic opportunities, and ensure that every child, as Katie said, as our team is sharing, has the opportunity to experience the benefits of water safety confidently. So thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you all, and thank you again. I will echo what Dr. Beal Tafik has said. And so I want to give you a couple resources. So I saw we had an amazing audience out there through our Facebook, our YouTube, and even our LinkedIn. We do want to say thank you. We had a viewer all the way from Singapore, so joining us here. And so meaning that knowledge is power, but also knowledge saves lives, right? And that's what these are for. And so again, we will have this available for each of you through our different channels and social media, and we'll for you to be able to share this resource, this discussion with your families, with your community, and with those who are decision makers. And it takes those layers in order to make sure that we are getting the information out there and the resources so that we can help save more lives. And that's what we are. We're a network to save lives. We're happy to be including Katie and the Autism Society in this network so that more families have access to the information. Stay tuned, guys. As we close out, please stay tuned to our next First Friday, which will be in August. And we'll be using the same channels as we go through here for our First Friday in August. If you or your organization has information you'd like to share with us, or if you hey, want to get in touch with our different aquatic councils who do host these first Fridays with us. We have a triathlon council, we have a rowing council, we have a scuba council, we have an HBCU, HSI, and tribal council. We have them all, and we want to share the information. We want to share the great work that is happening out here in aquatics, because these conversations like this are so important for us to have. And also, we want to say, don't forget, we are launching our Diversity in Aquatics Awards, which we just put out the link to that in our newsletter. If you're not a member of Diversity in Aquatics, please become a member of Diversity in Aquatics, because we are sharing those resources and more as a part of our membership. And so make sure you go to info@diversityinaquatics.org to email us if you have any questions, or go to diversityinaquatics.org for this information. You see this little QR code, boom, 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 right here in this corner. You can get to those resources that our panel discussed and more. So again, thank you all for that.
One more thing, don't forget, we have a class. So if you're a member of Diversity in Aquatics, we currently have a class that's open to our membership that is on adapted aquatics. So you could sign up if you are a member in our link to actually sign up for that course that's running in July. And we also have an opportunity towards the end of July for an ongoing WSI course, American Red Cross WSI course. So get involved, get engaged. Didn't want to forget that.
Oh, and absolutely. If you're trying to get certified, please contact us at info@diversityinaquatics.org. We have a number of certifying through Adapted, like the one you just heard this opportunity, as well as doing WSI from the American Red Cross, which is water safety instructor, and lifeguarding. So please, please contact us. We want to make sure that you get those resources to you, because the more that we can do this, the more lives we can save. So have a great evening. Be safe, everybody, during this long weekend, and have a good night. Bye.